Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. My name is Kevin McCormick. My wife, Jane McKee, and I have been coming here for about 10 years. In our church, members may have varied theological ideas, and we have many shared values. You're invited to bring your whole self, your full identity, your questioning mind, your expansive heart. Together, we create a force more powerful than one person or one belief system, with a dedication to living in a way that always centers love. In the sacred space we co-create, we offer one another friendship, wisdom, companionship, and many chances to work with each other towards common goals. You can learn more about all that's happening at this church by going to our website, uneedham.org, where you can sign up for our email newsletter. You can also follow us on social media. Today, I want to give a special welcome to those members of UU Wellesley Hills and First Church and Parish in Dedham who are attending this morning in person or online. For those who are in person, please stay for a social hour after service, which will be the other end of this hall. And another welcome to Emily Miller Mulshock, who is our summer pastoral care provider and who will be giving our sermon today. Emily is currently studying to be a parish minister at Meadville Lombard Theological Seminary. As an ADHD coach, her work focuses on helping people with anxiety, depression, and childhood trauma to increase their resiliency and joy. She continues to teach reading. The heart of her thinking is issues of vulnerability, resistance, and performance. Some things that bring her joy are writing, painting, singing, and swimming. And lastly, a reminder on our summer schedule. Next Sunday service will be here in Needham again. Then for the next 6 weeks, we'll be meeting at UU Wellesley Hills in their chapel. And then back here in Needham for the last 3 weeks of the summer. Welcome again to everyone, here in the building and online. We're so glad you're here. For the chalice lighting today, I'll read the following words composed at Oberlin UU Fellowship in Oberlin, Ohio. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whoever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together. Now please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing Gather the Spirit. The lyrics are at number 347 in your gray hymnals and on the screen.
Witness the history of
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises of a congregation strives to honor with one another and out in the world. Whether we participate in our community online or in the building, we strive to live these promises every day. Please say along with me the words of our parish covenant as in the order of services and on the screen. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
Jody Rooney, she, her. I had at another time talked about a friend, Sarah Beth, who had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and she passed away last week at 59, a week after her birthday. So it's a stone of sorrow for her and her family that she leaves behind.
With that, I'll drop one final stone for all those thoughts and concerns that are held in our heads today. Thank you.
I think one of the things about stones of joy and sorrows is the love that we commit to each other. So this is a poem by Rosemary Watola Trommer called Misty. And sometimes when I move at the edge of a greatness, a lake or a sea or a mountain, my insignificance thrills me, and the largest of my sadnesses dwindles smaller than the space between grains of sand. And in that moment, knowing my place, comes a love so enormous I can love anyone, even myself.
This congregation has been supported by the volunteer time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. This is the time in our service when we, the modern stewards of this church, offer what we can to build and sustain the congregation and the world we envision. This month, our plate collection will be shared equally between First Parish in Needham and the Needham Community Council, a nonprofit that supports people in Needham who have undermet health, educational, or social needs. And it promotes volunteerism, community, and a sense of shared responsibility. To donate to today's offering, you can use one of 3 different methods as described in your orders of service. You can use our Text to Give program through number 73256, donate through our website, uneam.org, or drop a check or cash into the collection plate, or mail a check to First Parish. Whichever way you donate, remember to specify your donation is meant for the plate collection or your annual pledge. Thank you for everything you were able to give to help support and sustain this congregation. May the ushers please come forward.
That was awesome. So thank you so much, Chris. I just love that. So this is a reading from Caroline D'Onofrio's blog called A Cup of Joy. It goes like this. There's a couple, a man and a woman, that lives in my neighborhood. I'd guess they're in their 80s, and sometimes they hold hands as they walk down the street. I don't know their backstories or even their names, but it wouldn't be a stretch to say that I love them. You know those people you see all the time during your commute or at the coffee shop or even just in passing, and though you don't know anything about them, they become fixtures in your life? Perhaps you make up stories about them, or maybe you simply wonder, where do they live? What's their favorite book? Do they have an orange cat named Julius? Is someone somewhere thinking of them right now? They're mysterious, yet familiar, like human signposts or landmarks or even lucky charms. My life is full of these not-so-strangers. Well, before I even begin my sermon, it's such a lovely thing to be here today in Needham. And I will say that I thought of this topic because I am both a stranger to you all And hopefully, as the pastoral person on call for this summer, or most of the summer, I will be a not-so-stranger at some point, that there'll be some shifting of that. And the second thing I want to note is that anticipating that your summer services will be held the way my home churches are, in a very, very, very humid spot where the fans are going constantly. I made this fairly short. And here I step into this beautiful air-conditioned space. Oh, well. Ask me about the topic at coffee hour. I'll say more. How's that? All right, so consequential strangers. We are all not so strangers to other people. I used to go to a serious weightlifting gym, think grunting, and I was often deadlifting at the same time as a fellow gym goer. Our conversations were pretty much limited to good morning and looks heavy, think light. One day I had an off lifting day, just couldn't get the bar off the ground. He turned to me and said, "Don't worry, the guys at work will still be impressed." Turned out this man, who didn't even know my name, talked about me at his work. I was the lady who can lift more than you can. Not so strangers, people who are both mysterious and familiar, form human signposts in our lives. They are not friends or family. And yet the people in this category, consequential strangers, have a bigger impact on our lives than we might think, and we to them in return. Consequential strangers is a term developed by social scientist Karen Fingerman to identify people who are at the periphery of our social connections and yet whose presence helps define our own lives. So the book she wrote on this with journalist Melinda Blau begins with thinking about a holiday card list. You start writing down your family and close friends, and then your colleagues, and for most of us, the list unfolds from there. Your dentist, the manager of your office building, the mail carrier, the people in your knitting group, your child's teacher, friends you've lost touch with. The list grows with people whom you might not think of as important, not compared to your primary loved ones, but to whom you do wish to extend your holiday greetings. People you want to acknowledge as being or having been meaningful to you in ways that might be hard to define. The more diverse your list is, the farther it spans from close intimates to consequential strangers, actually, the more socially embedded you feel. We can actually visualize our social connections by making a series of concentric circles in an exercise devised by the relationship psychology Tony Antonucci. You might try it out in your heads right now, or if you have a piece of paper, we all have paper, but if you had a pencil, you could try it out. So I'll go pretty slowly so you can kind of think along. So in the bullseye, right at the center, place your own name. In that first ring, write the name of a person or persons you cannot imagine life without. Got that? In the next, people who don't make that first list, but who are still very important. In the third, people whom you haven't already mentioned, but are close enough to be included in your personal network. That's actually where the original exercise ends. But I'd like us to think about a final circle, our peripheral ties, the people we know, but might not recognize what role they play in our lives. Actually, feel free to have as many rings as you need and to define them as you need. One of the challenges of thinking about our social connections is we lack vocabulary to express what's in between those we know deeply and those whom we do not know at all. This idea of the social circle was first used by George Simmel in the 1920s to describe how individuals coped when they moved from the countryside to the city, a place in which they didn't necessarily know their neighbors, nor could count on being known themselves. Simmel was interested in that first circle, the one or two people we most depend upon in our lives, because it was long thought that if a person had one or two close ties, they had all the social connections they needed. In fact, over 90% of the research literature around relationships focuses on our most intimate relationships with partners, children, parents. And yet, as you can see from those concentric circles that you were just doing inside your own head and the holiday lists, we have many more relationships at the periphery of our social circles. These are our consequential strangers, people both mysterious and familiar who contribute deeply to our sense of belonging and self-perception. So, to understand this a little better, we've got to first understand the counterintuitive idea of the strength of weak ties. So the strength of weak ties. And so this is a concept developed by the sociologist Mark Granovetter. You can see I love research, who is doing research on how people found jobs. Over and over again, he discovered that people reported getting employment through their acquaintances rather than their friends. Although people said their closer relationships would be willing to help, those close ties often share the same information pool. They had little new to offer. Acquaintances had information pools that only slightly overlapped with the job seekers. What mattered was their difference, their strangeness, the parts of their lives that were unfamiliar. Consequential strangers can offer us new perspectives. They can see past the ways we've limited ourselves or have been limited by our closer relationships. Consequential strangers have less to lose by giving us constructive feedback, sharing with us the name of a great movie they saw, telling us that their lives have been changed now that they're vegans or on keto or gluten-free or whatever it is. Their advice doesn't come with the baggage of history. These relationships also help us become more accepting. It can be easier, for instance, to practice empathy and understanding for a colleague's child who struggles with depression or who is in a 12-step program. If this were our own child, we may feel angry, judgmental, anxious that we had not been good enough parents. Being one step removed allows us a chance to work through our own possible prejudices and fears. Consequential strangers challenge and extend our view of the world. We expect our friends and family, those closest to us, to behave and think in ways we understand, in other words, like us. So during the pandemic, when a close friend of mine opted not to get vaccinated, I was stunned. How could she? Didn't she know? When she talked about her decision, I could barely listen. I was just seething and upset inside. But that same choice made by my neighbors provided me with a chance to be present with an open mind, to hear their worries and their misunderstandings alike. Because I had less at stake in the relationship with my neighbors, I could engage in a loving, honest, listening dialogue. The strength of weak ties allows us to grow as people, to experiment, to try out new things, to enjoy being members of various and diverse social groups and communities. Our relationships with the consequential strangers in these groups affirm our own sense of belonging. They become anchors, tethering us to space and time, to places and events, affirming different aspects of ourselves and allowing us to stretch. We are both confirmed and transformed by these strangers. Every decision we make thrusts us into the path of new consequential strangers. You get a dog. You notice others who have a dog. You develop a walking habit, and you learn the name of the other dogs. And then one day, as Melinda Blau writes, you sheepishly ask the owner of the golden retriever, "I know this is Max, but I'm embarrassed to admit I don't know your name. You introduce yourself, perhaps walk part of the way together, but there's usually no reason to exchange emails. The relationship is of the path, anchored to that time and space. The path of the dog walk, the space of the gym, the coffee shop. These are all potentially being spaces, spaces in which we feel comfortable, in which a piece of our identity is affirmed. In those places, anchored by our interactions with consequential strangers, we are the polite customer, the funny storyteller, the fashionably dressed, the good listener, or for myself at one point, the lady who lift more than you did. We inhabit this moment and then exit. And that's another part of the power of these weak ties. They can be dissolved. We can walk away. They can walk away. Our circle of consequential strangers is always being reshaped by circumstance, by choice, by sheer luck. That tension between dissolve and anchor, between the familiar and the mystery, is at the heart of the consequential stranger relationship. We can sometimes tell a stranger the very things we cannot tell our loved ones. How many of us have had an encounter, a type of mystical intimacy, when we might confess to a stranger, tell them our inner longings? Maybe you've been on an airplane ride, and all of a sudden you find yourself telling something that you didn't think that you were even going to tell your close friends. Our secrets are held safe, held both by our shared humanness and by knowing we might never meet again. There's something very safe about that weak tie. We have no obligation in those moments other than to be present, to give the gift of ourselves. Sometimes we don't even know how meaningful a consequential stranger relationship is until it ends. That was true for me when, a long time ago, I was in a choir and one of the tenors died, and I didn't know him, as I wasn't friends with him. I only knew him as the tenor who sat in that section. After his death, I realized his presence had made me feel safe in this new community of singers. And I had not realized that until it was gone. So many people, when they heard I was talking on consequential strangers, said something like, "Oh, you're going to be talking about how to get to know them better, how to bring the stranger into your inner circle." No. It's the fact that these relationships exist on the edges that make them so important. So how do we honor this consequential stranger relationship? And hold on, this is the place in the sermon where, as a UU, I'm going to make a little bit of a zip over here. And I am going to use God language. You translate it in your head as you need to translate it. So for the ancient Greeks, the traveling stranger, perhaps sailing from a distant island, was to be treated with hospitality, offered a meal and fresh clothing, treated as if this might be a visit from a god. In return, the stranger offered a story of the world beyond and a blessing for the household. And if indeed the stranger was a god in disguise, the blessing established a type of kinship with the divine, a special relationship. This guest-host agreement is expressed in the phrase do ut des, I give that you might give. I give that you might give. I welcome the stranger so that the stranger welcomes me. And just for a moment, we might even think about how that could apply in our political times. I welcome the stranger so the stranger welcomes me. And I like how the songwriter Joan Osborne expressed this possibility that the stranger might be the divine, might be God. She writes, or sings, "What if God was one of us? Just a slob like one of us? Just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home?" I like to believe, like the ancient Greeks did, that there is the possibility of theoxenia, an unwitting encounter with the divine as stranger, familiar, and mysterious, connected and apart. How many of us have been given a gift from a stranger when we most needed it? A kind word, a job connection, or like my brother, a stem cell transplant. What if God, however the divine is for you, what if God were one of us, just like us, messy and transcendent, mysterious and familiar, kin and stranger alike? What if God, the divine, were in each of us, as the Quakers believe, that each of us has an inner light? Consequential strangers are the reminder of the possibility of the divine in each of us being an unwitting divine presence in another's life, and of receiving a divine presence in our own. When we see through the eyes of a stranger, we embrace the impermanence and mystery of our lives and connect ourselves with shared humanity. This is how we let ourselves be transformed. Let us welcome the other in ourselves, in the stranger, in the blessings we receive and give. Blessed be.
We always extinguish our chalice with words promising to carry its flame in our hearts until we are together again. No matter how long it is, until we are all together again. Please join me from home or here in the building in saying these words written by you, Minister Reverend Elizabeth Selly Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing, "Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire." The lyrics are at number 34 in your gray hymnals and on the screen.
To all is
May you be happy and healthy. May you be safe and free from harm. May you welcome the stranger in yourself and in others. May you welcome the divine in yourself and in others. May you feel loved and be held in the embrace of loving kindness all the days of your life. Amen.